Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. My name is Dan Hafner and this is Tech Bytes. We are joined by a special guest today, Larissa Schneider. We're going to talk a little bit about AI implementation. This is a kind of a topic I've kind of brushed over in some previous episodes, but how do you actually implement this stuff inside of a C-suite company, a big company? We've talked about this before. There's a lot of AI projects that are failing to see returns or not being implemented correctly, and it's a hot topic. I mean, every conversation I've been in the past 3 months, or probably longer, has revolved around how are we using AI? How are we actually moving it forward? How are we leveraging this tool to grow our businesses, to change our lives, to do different things? But a lot of us, we kind of, it seems like people either are really, really good at it or really, really struggle with it. So how do we implement this at a business level? So we're going to bring Larissa in here. She's going to give us a little bit of background on it. She's the CEO of a company called, or a co-founder, of a company called Unframe, which works with very, very big companies in this space. And we're just going to dive into, I have a lot of really interesting questions we're going to ask her and see what's going on with that. So before I bring her in, as always, thank you all for joining the show. Please be sure to like and subscribe to the show, whether you're watching this on YouTube, listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you are listening to the show or watching this. It is always very, very appreciated to like, to share, to subscribe, leave us a rating, a review. I would say leave a bad review, even if you want to leave a review, but I know that doesn't really help. So either way, just share the show. We always appreciate that. It really, really helps us. So that is my little spiel for that. So Larissa, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me. Doing great. Very excited to have that conversation with you today, and thanks for the intro.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, before we dive into it, again, I kind of did a little bit of it, but just give us your own little 30-second rundown, kind of what your background is in.
Absolutely. So, Larissa, I'm one of the co-founders and COO of Unframe. We started the company last year, so almost 2 years under our belt. As three co-founders, I'm together with Shai and Adi. We met in the cybersecurity world, actually, and worked together there at No Name Security, which Shai was a co-founder and CTO of before, was recently acquired by Akamai for 500 million. We're like, this is a fantastic time to move over and work on AI because this is what the world talks about right now and what everyone wants to get into. And it's like this now or never moment. And initially what we found in the market was like everyone was rushing at the enterprise to try and take value from them, but no one was really delivering value to them. And we can talk all about how we do that, but it basically led us down this path of inventing this whole business model and the approach that we work on with our customers. We call it like basically a managed AI delivery platform, which is something, it's a space that we invented. And it's not just the product, it's the whole way that we operate with our customers, which is very unique. And I'm happy to walk you through that throughout this conversation.
Wow, very cool. Yeah, I have lots of questions on that. I hadn't even thought of, but maybe we'll get to that eventually. So, but you
Sounds
said
good.
something that caught my attention, where you said that there's this. It seems like this now or never moment, like you mentioned. There seems to be this massive, at least if you believe the stories, or if you're in this space and you kind of work with people every day, there seems to be this massive appetite right now for AI, 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 AI. We need to just figure out a way to use this. But you also said in the same breath that there's a shortage of uh, implementers, or people who are actually like, kind of being able to meet that need. So to me, in economic theory, that kind of tells me that there's a massive supply but low demand, and when that happens, prices can go like, or I'm sorry, I'm opposite there. There's a massive demand but a low supply of the people who are actually doing this stuff. So that means prices go through the roof, right? And just in very basic economic theory, right? So yeah, that's kind of my first question is like, are you seeing that, um, like big companies are just overpaying like this by leaps and bounds? Are they just throwing money at it to throw money at it, or are they actually thinking through this stuff strategically to say like, okay, we want to be able to implement this stuff, but we don't want to just like blow millions of dollars on this kind of stuff. I'm curious. What do you see a lot?
Yeah, and that's the interesting but also the absolutely insane part about the AI world we live in right now, because it everything starts from scratch. Like nothing in AI is the way that we know it from like the SaaS era or like the internet era. Everything is different than it's ever been, and it's so much faster than anything has ever evolved in the tech world, right? So that's first of all the basis I would set. And even though we try to understand, next week the whole world might look completely different in our AI world. That's the first thing. But the interesting thing that you're seeing in AI is like it's both top down as well as bottom up. Because bottom up, like think about every single worker in any company around the world right now is probably using ChatGPT in their personal life. And they see how that has transformed everything that they do. But then they go back to the office, sit in their cubicle, and log into like some really, really old legacy software to copy paste data from one spot to the next. From 9 to 5 every single day. So you have that pressure from the bottom up, but you also have the pressure top down, where all the C-levels in every single boardroom around the world over the last couple of years, I can promise you, have been asked by their board members, what are we doing? What is our AI strategy? How are you differentiating? So it's coming from all angles, which is really, really the interesting part here.
Yeah, I mean, because let's go a little psychological for a minute, because if the board members are saying, okay, what are we doing
Mhm.
to take advantage of this? Why are they doing that? Right? It's because they every company wants an edge. Everybody wants to make sure that they're evolving, that they're not becoming outdated or stale, or being able to still capture market share. Right? There is everyone's in business to make money. Um, and it's like, okay, if that's their driving factor, we were talking about this before we hit record. Like, is it? Do you think that there still is a drive for the C-suite team to like really be like, hey, we wanna leverage this stuff and move this forward, or I'm just doing it because my bosses are telling me to do it?
I mean, look, we always say the Fortune 500 leaders of next decade, they are planning for it now. You can choose what you want to do, but we know that the future winners, they are planning. And you start to see actually these kind of like, we call them like AI native businesses that pop up, like the full stack AI business, who are not just building a tool or a software, they're building a brand new business powered by AI, and they're going to compete with the incumbents. So they're a lot more lean, they're a lot more like they're faster. They can act significantly quicker and more efficiently. They will take over people that do not jump on the board. That is
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, so let's go back a step, because you mentioned something too that was interesting. You mentioned like, people who are using ChatGPT or something that go
Mhm.
in their personal life, and they go in, they're
Yeah.
using like old legacy systems or software, or like a lot of places don't even like they're scared to use AI, or input company data into AI, because it's kind of like Pandora's box. Once you open that and it's out there, it's not really proprietary anymore, right? I
For
know,
sure.
like there's different enterprise level accounts that you can get where that data is secure and such, but like what do you see as how does a CEO or COO navigate that challenge of saying like, hey, we have we have all this proprietary company data, we have all these legacy systems, but now like there's these brand new shiny AI tools. Like how do we get these to converge? How do we make it so it's not putting our business at risk, but it's also really leveraging this stuff and being able to push us forward?
Yeah, and that's a fantastic point, right? Because you mentioned at the start, we work with a lot of like Fortune 500s, regulated industries. So we really see this every single day. The reality that you need to come to terms with as a leader in an enterprise like that right now is like your employees are going to use it no matter what. So either you give them an option and you give them something that you feel is secure, or they're going to probably, even though they're not allowed to, take your data and put it into an LLM because that is what they're used to. As much as you hope that that's not the case, I want to say pretty pretty sure that's going to happen. And as I said, we came from a cybersecurity background, so we really understand the red tapes that the CISO is going to put in place, and we build our business around it. Like, we offer full on-prem deployments if a customer wants to use all of our technology within their perimeter so that no data has to leave it. That is totally fine. Or like they can work with models that they trust that don't have access to the internet if they wish to. So that there's a lot of things that you can do, but you need to kind of tackle that topic once and decide the approach that you want to take. And so that's where like the C-level strategy is super important, and that you don't just have like the citizen DIY developers across your business that kind of go a bit rogue and start little fires all around.
Yeah, and I think that's always been a problem, but there's also like it's easier than ever nowadays. That's kind of the thing. Okay, interesting. Now, um, we were talking about this a little bit before as well, but how do you think that? So yeah, just for context, I was telling Larissa before we joined, like I just got done doing a training session for a company out in well, in my home state of Pennsylvania, I'll say that, where I basically taught 15 developers like how to use ChatGPT better for coding purposes, right? This was an audience of developers. This isn't people who are C-suite people, right? So they're like, how can I make this create better JavaScript for me? How can I transition some TypeScript into some Java? How can I do some better SQL queries? Like very technical type of things, right? But as I was telling you before, like the CTO was the person who was clearly like the head over this project, was the one that brought me in, that was like, hey, we want you to do this. So there's clearly like you have a an IT leader or an IT person thinking about how I leverage a tool like ChatGPT or AI to use in my job. And then you have your C-suite people kind of thinking about it in different ways, right? So is there any what I'm trying to ask is like, is there any company or like specific, case study you've seen where like there's this clear mindset difference? And does that, do those jive all the time, or are they like kind of in conflict?
They absolutely do not jive all the time, that's for sure.
Figured.
Because they have very different motivations and different backgrounds, right? But what it comes down to for us is like working with the business user. And that can be someone who is very C-level and senior, but it can also be someone who doesn't have a technical bone in their body. Often projects that are being brought to us and like people that buy software within large organizations could be the head of legal, the head of finance, someone in sales operations. Those are the typical personas that buy software for their departments without thinking about what would a developer think or what would a developer do. Like, they have a problem, they want a solution very quickly. That solution could be AI, or it could be assisted by AI, or it could be something completely different. But it's not always the first inkling to be like, okay, let me see if we could possibly build this in-house. Neither should it be, because people can nowadays, with all the quick DIY generators and the cursors of the world, it's become a lot easier and faster to build a lot of software. But what, especially in the large enterprise context, what people forget is the maintenance, the upkeep, the feature enhancements. The spikes we see in like new model improvements and so on in the AI world is like drastic within a couple of weeks. Who is going to take care of that in the long run and make sure it's enterprise ready? That's often something that people forget. And I think that's where both the C-level, the developer themselves, as well as the actual user of the software need to be pretty in sync to make sure that is being covered.
Yeah, that's such a good point. It's such a good point because you often, everyone deals with different things day to day. There's, developers are dealing with an entirely different thing as accountants are dealing with, as salespeople are dealing with, as the CEO is dealing with. Like, so it's all relative. But you bring up a good point about, um, you know, and I talk about this with my clients a lot, of like this building software kind of thing. That's one thing that I notice a lot of times, is that, a lot of people really aren't, um, prepared for kind of the back end piece of, oh, we actually have this tool now. It does need maintenance. It does need upkeep. It does need republished. It does need to be changed. Some stuff did break. Where did that? What happened with that? Maybe there's upgrade. If there is AI baked into it, there is a new model out called 5.2. Maybe we need to leverage that one for ChatGPT instead of the old one, right? So there's a lot to stay on top of. So in your experience, like what are some of the trade-offs to, like, okay, so we're a Fortune 500 company. We want to implement some AI stuff. What are the trade-offs to let's just buy a solution, right? Let's just buy something and spend and throw money at this problem, something that's already built. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Or let's actually build something from scratch, because there's a whole cost ROI kind of thing that goes into this. So like what are some of the things you walk, your clients through when it comes to that decision?
Yeah, actually, and you mentioned two options, but really I think there's four options. So let's actually look at like a large public company that has a lot of legacy software, that has maybe systems of record that they built themselves, something that's not readily available. And you either have a point solution that's ready off the shelf, but in many cases you don't, because it doesn't have the integrations you need. It doesn't have the exact workflows you need. So that for many of the real important use cases is not an option. You could obviously build, in many cases, that's not for free either, right? You still have to, even if you pay a different department in-house, you still pay for it. And you're still battling the time of the internal developer to prioritize your specific project. And we all know how it is. Developers, smartest people in the room, they want to work on what's really exciting. And in most cases, they're very excited by the actual core product that the company is selling and their core IP, rather than an internal HR ticketing system or like a financial analytics piece of software for the accounting team. It's even though those are like major steps for a company to be more efficient and more productive, that's not always the sexiest use case for a super smart AI developer to work on. But then you have two other options, actually, which is the consultancies. Every single consultancy in the world has offered AI strategy sessions. And I mean, everyone thinks who's the big winner of AI, and people are like, oh, that's OpenAI. Guess again, it's Accenture, right? Like they have made by far the most money out of this AI boom right now, because everyone's stressing and going to them and paying millions and millions for a year or two or three of AI strategy planning. So they can build you something custom. It comes with a price tag, and it depends if that's really what you want. But then we have this fourth option, which is kind of, it's our platform, and the platform is very modular. But all of the different individual solutions that you run on top of it, they have a shared layer. We call this shared layer the knowledge fabric. And it basically understands and constantly learns from all of the different solutions, the different integrations, the different workflows, as well as the user behavior you have. So while your AI stack evolves, your needs evolve, the systems are constantly self-learning, and they're correlating between each other. So let's say we have like some companies that work with us, they started with one or two use case. Let's take something kind of like a manufacturing operations integrated with their ERP. So we know very well the type of products they're producing, how their ERP is structured. Now we also integrated their CRM, because we're doing a few use cases with them around their customers and sales. So we can already correlate how things look between the ERP as well as their whatever it might be, a Salesforce CRM. But then we might also do another use case, which is around their invoice payment use cases. And so we might integrate with all of their payment platforms. So you can start to see how this map of terminology, of abbreviations, of user behavior, of workflows just becomes really, really solid. And we always say, onboarding a new solution on, like, that's an AI native solution on an AI native platform that like works together and is designed that way, it starts from day one with like a fully ramped employee versus having an employee that you onboard on your team and now have to spend week or month actually training and helping them understand and filling their knowledge. So that's kind of what we think is the best of both worlds in the build versus buy kind of mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's also one of the biggest wins and kind of things that I've thought about is Well, I mean, you think about the gold rush. Like everyone calls it the AI gold rush, right? I think that there's like, who were the people that got richest during the gold rush, like the actual gold rush? It wasn't the people that necessarily were going and mining for gold. It was the people who sold shovels, right?
Makes sense.
And it does because and that's where I've kept in the back of my mind at all times is I want to be the shovel seller, right? You see all these stories of people who are vibe coding apps and capitalizing on AI, and that's great. There's a place for that. There's a market for that. Myself, and I've kind of went a little bit of a different route and said I'm not as interested in that.
Hmm.
I'm more interested in being the shovel seller, right? Like I'm more interested in like you said, the consulting era,
Hmm.
and then because that also leads to, hey, now that you notice that there's this hole in what you're doing and that AI could fill it, we could also develop that for you. Like you said, there's a price tag attached to that, but then there's
Exactly.
also like ongoing education and ongoing consultancy and things like that. So yeah, I think that there's a massive market right now in the next 5 years for those shovel sellers, quote unquote, to start a new business or make money off of that stuff if you can learn a little bit about it. So
100%. And I mean, honestly, we've only
yeah,
seen like the first few miles of this marathon, right? Like there's so much more to come with AI, and we have no idea which other type of shovel sellers that might be catching up on or like just popping out of nowhere next year.
yeah. I mean, and I like what you said too about like, I think that's definitely a better approach to have to things is like, because I noticed when I started implementing that in my own business, right? Like I would have ChatGPT over here, and then I found another AI tool over here, and then now like Riverside where we're recording this
Hmm.
episode has its own AI things that are really useful and helpful. But then I'll be like, I'll take the transcript and I'll go over to ChatGPT and I'll say like, hey, help me with this, and then I come back in. But I don't need like it's getting better and getting um, more integrated with things. So um, like you said, like that word modular, having like, okay, this is all integrated. It like the word that comes to mind is wholesome. Like it's all there. Cause I think that's a very, at least our like, probably maybe not my generation, but like maybe the people kind of a little bit coming behind me, maybe millennials. I don't know. Um, that there is an appetite for those kinds of things, right? There's an appetite for knowing where things are sourced and knowing that things are aligned and having that purpose and having that direction. And then when you kind of have those things built in a way that is like that, I think you're very well positioned to take advantage not only of what's actually happening, but the way that people are actually thinking about this stuff, you know?
Yeah, totally. Actually, we use the metaphor of Lego blocks quite a lot. So that's how we describe our platform. It's basically
Nice.
we have a huge box of Legos, and when we meet a new customer, we take only the Legos we need from it, we put them together, and then every one of our customers, they get the different blocks, but they get it customized for them. And basically, that's with something that we call a blueprint, which is basically the instructions manual that you have in each of the box. And so that's kind of what configures the whole thing. And then our knowledge fabric is like the base layer that's underneath all of it. And you can put all of your little Lego pieces on top of it.
I like that analogy. We were at a party last night. We were admiring a bunch of Legos that people have put together, and I used to be very into Legos. I'm not really so much anymore, but that's such a good analogy because Legos, like when you have big Lego sets, they can be pretty hard to put together. You have all the pieces there and you have the instructions, but you still need to actually build it and put it together correctly.
You need
You
to do
know?
that, but also if you build like a really solid foundation, like the brick itself, it's not rocket science, right? But
Hmm.
whether you build like a hospital, a spaceship, or a race car with it, you always start with like the same 2 by 3 or whatever little block that is, and it gets you many places if it's done right.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay. One other quick question I want to ask you about, just because I'm curious. I know I'm located here in the United States. You are over in Deutschland, located in Berlin,
Hmm.
um, and I'm always curious to kind of get a pulse on what things are like outside of the U.S. Like and specifically, I'm curious because I have a couple of international clients. We have a little bit more. We're kind of growing in that area too, but um, you know what do you see as what are maybe some of the differences, and maybe I don't know, maybe about differences. I'm trying to think of the best way to word this. Like, what's the AI adoption culture like where you are? Like, what are some of the attitudes? Is it very embraced? Is it resistant? Is it is it flexible? Like, I'm just curious. Like, what? And this is a very broad question. I'm just curious. Like, can you tell us a little bit about that? From your perspective overseas.
Totally, absolutely. And as a company itself, though, we are headquartered in California. I'm specifically in Berlin, spend half of
Oh,
my
okay.
time probably in New York. So, like, a lot of our customers are US customers that I talk with all the time. But surprisingly, a lot of their innovation and AI teams are based out of London. We see this trend quite a bit, even though they are US headquartered companies. So sometimes I'm visiting all of our New York and Chicago customers in London, which is
Well,
interesting.
shout out to you, London listeners. The UK is actually the biggest listening demographic of this show. So
There
shout
you
out to you
go.
guys. Shout out to you guys.
It is for a reason. Yeah, but it's an interesting one because look, when you start a startup and you work a lot with VCs across the US, which we are doing, you kind of have to get the US right. And that's where we started. This is what our background is. All of us as a founding team, as well as our leadership team, we have like an enterprise sales background. Like that's what we have always done. And so you're like, okay, you know exactly the Manhattan kind of financial services is where you go. And then for big tech, you go to San Francisco and you go after those. The interesting thing in the US is, and then I'll move to the international, but like every single AI startup in the world right now targets San Francisco and targets New York. And it's like, so you can't even go from the airport into the city without passing like 25 different, we are an AI startup or an AI platform thing right now. You don't have that a lot in the center of the US. So there's a lot of empty space there where we've seen some really, really fast moving deals similar in Europe. Some of our actually the fastest customer sales cycles we've had have been with European customers. I think it's for a certain part of it is because we have the options of doing full on-prem deployments if that's what the customer chooses. So all of the security concerns that Europe is usually associated with are not really there because they can bypass them. We also don't charge a single dollar until the customer is happy. There's absolutely no commitment. So we build a fully custom AI solution for them that they can try, they can host, they can play around, they can integrate for a certain number of weeks, months, if need to be. But they don't pay anything for it. And only if they actually like it, they will pay. Which is very different to kind of the upfront payments that you see in many parts of this business. Yeah, and it's really helped us with getting trust from potential customers quickly. And when they've seen it, they're actually like, okay, now I kind of need to license it because I see it works and I like the outcome I'm getting.
That wow, that talk about burying the lead here in this show. Like that's wild. That's absolutely incredible. What a way to flip the model on its head.
We do everything against the books. I told you that.
That's crazy. That's awesome. Okay, so yeah, so give us a little spiel on Unframe, and we'll wrap this up because that's very very intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, look, we started obviously, as I said, a couple of years ago. We never wanted to be a company that sits in a basement and thinks about what do customers actually want, because no one has ever built a great platform that way. We wanted to be customer facing immediately. Honestly, we went to our first conference 3 weeks after incorporation and started working with real customers like a Wall Street bank, some other companies there. And so we built a really, really great platform. As I said, like those types of Lego bricks. We've basically taken all of the most complicated, the complex, time-consuming, difficult challenges that an enterprise faces when building AI solutions, turned them into these reusable building blocks, and then we take them and configure them into a turnkey solution for every customer. We do this in a very, very simple 3-step process, actually. And, some people say like the new age Palantir type model, but just very lightweight and a lot more efficient for the customer, cost effectively. First, we just hop on a call with the customer and we really discuss what is the use case. Either they have a clear idea or they're just exploring where I could help them. 30 minutes, 45 minutes, we discuss the use case with the business user. Then we go away for 5 days and we'll come back and we will show them a complete production-ready solution that is running on our platform that they can actually try. Like they can either use dummy data if they are regulated, that's usually the preference, or they can hook it up to their own systems. And then only in the third step, we will move to licensing if they're happy. And we charge per solution per year. And yeah, it's pretty simple. But it's very different to like standard SaaS kind of models that people have been used to for the last few years.
What a great puppy dog close type of cycle that you have there. That's awesome. Bravo. Well done with that. What a great model. I think that's really, really amazing. Good for you guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, you guys can check that out. I'll love the link below in the show notes as well, but it is unframe.ai. Okay. So yeah, go check it out. Sounds really, really amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much, Larissa. This has been really, really, really intriguing conversation, really fun. I learned a lot. Do you have anything else to add before we sign off?
No, I mean, love podcasts, love the conversations that result from it. Sounds like you have a great community. I'm looking forward to staying in touch with everyone. And thanks for the invitation, Dan. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining. Yeah, guys, that is it for this episode. I hope you learned something. I learned quite a bit. I'm very interested about the last part we talked about the difference in between like the hubs of where things are going. Like there's so many opportunities out there if you think through different ways to approach this stuff. It's just it's really overwhelming and mind-boggling at the same time. So all right, guys, well, that is it for this episode. As always, if you enjoyed this, please share this episode with anyone you think might find value out of it, and be sure to like, rate, and review the show, and also subscribe if that is an option where you watch or listen. All right, my name is Dan Hafner, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Tech Bytes, your go-to show for software business and technology. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated with our latest episodes, insights, and stories. Hungry for more? Dive deeper into the world of no-code by visiting dapnacode.com. Your journey to building amazing software without coding skills starts there. Connect with like-minded creators and unlock a world of resources tailored just for you. Subscribe now. Explore Dapper No Code and let's